Okay, so the first thing we've got to talk about, obviously, is the tour. You're obviously coming to Australia in April. What can we expect on this tour?
Well, we're going to play our recent album, Pelagial, pretty much in its entirety every night, as we have already done in almost every other place in the world, but not in Australia.
Okay.
So we're going to play the record beginning to the end, as it was written and recorded, pretty much. It's a conceptual piece of music that's basically one long, almost an hour-long track, and that's why it was meant to be performed like that live as well. And so it's very predictable. If you know the record, you know what you'll get.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like part of the plan. And then we'll probably play some older songs as encores, depending on the night.
Yeah. Cool. So how close do you actually stay true to the album, or do you sort of change things here and there?
Fairly close. As for what like the whole arrangements are concerned and the song order and all that kind of stuff, there are some parts we add live. We've had a new guitar player come into the band, Australian citizen Damo actually, who joined us last January, and he added a couple of leads over parts where there was nothing like that before, or changed certain guitar patterns and stuff like that. So if you pay close attention, you will notice that some things are different or some things have been added to it, but generally we stay fairly close to the record, how it's been recorded.
Yeah. Actually, and that's another thing I was actually going to ask you as well, was obviously your newest guitar player, Damien, obviously an Australian. How did you guys meet?
He found us through the internet, basically. We were down a guitarist last year after Luke and Jonah left the band. That was becoming obvious in April already, and they left the band towards the end of the year, so we had plenty of time to look for someone, but we just didn't really do so because we've been touring the whole year. And then by the end of the year, we kind of made it public and just said it on our Facebook that we need a guitar player, and a lot of people applied, and Damo sent us a video of himself playing 2/4 tracks of Pelagial, and it was played very well. And he also sent us a track of him playing a Dillinger Escape Run song that he also played very well, and so we were like, this guy actually knows how to play, let's give it a chance, and started talking to him, and he turned out to be a really cool guy, and so we invited him to Berlin. He was living in Vienna at that time already. He's married to an Austrian woman.
Oh, okay.
And so we invited him, so it wasn't that far. He didn't have to fly in from Perth or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a bit weird, from Australia,
no,
and they're flying all the way to where you guys are, so, it's cool.
No, he was already in Europe, and so he came over to Berlin for a weekend, and we rehearsed, and then kind of made the decision on the spot that we want him to be in the band, and things just felt right with him musically. He's a very, very, very good guitar player, and really has brought and will bring things to the table that will, be interesting for this band. And also, like, personally, he seemed to be in the right place. He wanted to tour, and was really keen on doing this. So, yeah, there you go.
Awesome. We're looking forward to seeing him when you guys come over. So, and also just getting back to the tour as well, I mean, when you guys perform, I guess, any songs, but maybe this album in particular, and you did say that you might have a few changes here and there, but is there any room for improvisation at all in the kind of music that you play, or?
Usually not. It's there is room for improvisation when we write. When we write certain parts, obviously a lot of them are developed by improvising and then finding, the right approach to the part or finding the right notes or whatever it is. But once that has been done, once it's been written, it usually stays like that most of the time. I mean, you kind of have to look at every instrument. Obviously, the drummer will not play the exact same fills in every spot every night. There's some room for improvisation there. But as for what the arrangement is concerned, that has to be the same because we play to a click entirely. It's all a sequenced show, so to speak. Our live visuals are triggered via MIDI, and our lighting is partially controlled by the sequencer as well. So we don't have room to say, we really feel this part should be like 8 bars longer tonight or something like that. We can't do that. That's not possible if you're playing a conceptualized show, but I don't really have the desire to do that, to be honest. The songs, the way they end up on the record, are the end result of a long, long process of trying out pretty much everything you can do with that song and moving parts around and and the song, the way it ends on the album, is the ideal idea of that song. Otherwise, it wouldn't end up on the album. So there is no reason why that should be changed in a live environment. And then, so yeah, room for improvisation is limited, but obviously, like when you play a guitar solo, you're free to do whatever the fuck you want within the constraints of those 16 or 32 bars that you have. But you just have to stick to the time, basically.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And I've never had the opportunity to see you guys live before, but I know you've been to Australia before. You got a whole sort of visual aspect and a whole stage sort of show sort of set up as well for this tour.
Yeah, we have visuals that are a part of the show, and we will bring those to Australia as well. It's basically a film made by Craig Murray that comes with the album in the limited edition that we sold the album with. There is a DVD included with a 5:1 Dolby surround mix of the instrumental record. The album came out in 2 versions with vocals and instrumentals, so that's on there. And then the DVD on the DVD is also the movie by Craig Murray, and that's what we show live. Basically, it's a film that is kind of visualizing that journey from the surface to the bottom of the sea that is this album, and those visuals are an integral part of our show, and we really don't like playing without them. Sometimes we have to because venues are just too small, and I'm a bit afraid that on this Australian tour it's not going to be ideal conditions because it's just only our second tour ever over there, so we can't really expect to fill, like 1,000 capacity venues. So obviously we have to compromise, and some venues are going to be very small, and the stage is going to be really small, and like the ceiling is going to be low, so it's going to be hard to make the projections work there. But we're going to try our best. We'll bring our setup and see that we can make it work in most places.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, we're looking forward to it. And when you did come over here the first time, how was that experience for you guys?
It was a bit shit, to be honest. We had some cool shows in general, but the guy who booked the tour was just an asshole, and he fucked us and didn't pay us what he promised to pay us, and ended up bringing a lot of expenses to the table that we had never approved and never talked about, and it was just a bit of a scam artist. And we were not the only band that he fooled. There were other bands. It's all over the internet. You can see it everywhere. He had issues with Sun and I Hate God and like a lot of bands. So we were not the only ones biting into the sour apple, as we say in German. Yeah. But yeah, that's what kind of spoiled the tour. It was a bit shit, but generally we loved Australia, and the shows were cool for the most part. Yeah. And it was a great experience, despite it being super rushed. The itinerary was completely crazy too. We drove from Sydney to Brisbane in one night. So we played Sydney, played Brisbane the next night, then drove right back to Sydney the following night, and then to Melbourne, where we had a show the following day. So it was all, and then we left for Perth like at 5 in the morning or something like that. So basically 4 nights we just didn't have any sleep, and it was a bit crazy. Like, this tour is much better organized. Ellie from Wild Thing Presents has done a great job at really like making sure that everything is as comfortable as it can be, and that we're going to be able to deliver the show the way we want to, and that we're all going to be well rested, and that the gear situation is sorted and all this kind of stuff. And so I think it's going to be a lot better this time around. Yeah, hopefully, because obviously having that kind of hassle, and I think I know the company you're talking about, because obviously there's been a few bands over the last couple of years that have been sort of been stuffed around a bit. So hopefully this tour will be much better for you and a much better experience. So is touring, I know there's a lot of hassles with touring and all that, but is that something that you still enjoy as much as you do or did when you first started? Yeah. Obviously, things change over the years, and you do develop a certain routine, and routines essentially mean boredom. So that's why I'm trying to not let that happen wherever I can. But when you're on tour like 8 or 9 months in a year, then it's unavoidable that it becomes some sort of a routine. But I still really do enjoy it. And now we've had a long pause. We haven't really toured since March 2014, so almost for a year now. We've only played summer festivals in Europe and like one-off gigs, but we haven't really properly toured. So we're all keen now. We're on fire, and like we love doing this. And otherwise, it's possible to do it. You really have to be into this,
Yeah.
because it is a lot of compromising on sleep and on, you know, seeing your friends or your family or whatever. So you really have to want to do this in order to enjoy it. And I think we're all in the same boat there. We really love touring and seeing different places. And this time now, we're trying to really do it in a way that's slightly different from the early days, obviously, when, you know, we just had to look at making it most cost efficient, and that sometimes meant that we would tour for like 5 or 6 weeks with like 2 days off or something like that. Now we're really trying to plan in a way that allows us for some time to see places actually, and that worked out pretty well with this tour. We have a show in Singapore and a couple of days before to, you know, hang out and see the city, and then we have those 3 gigs in New Zealand, and between New Zealand and Australia we have like 10 days off, so we actually get to travel and hang out with people a bit, and that's really rewarding. Like, I really want to get to a point where we can afford to do that it's not just rushing from one place to the next, but that it actually allows you to enjoy traveling, you know, and seeing the places that you play.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously a big part of the touring is, you know, seeing all the different sort of cultures and different countries and all that kind of stuff. So to not be able to see that while you're on tour would probably be a bit of a disappointment, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been like that for most of my life. It's just been awesome. We're in New Orleans and we don't even have time to see the city, you know, like what is this? But sometimes it's just like that, and you're not the only band on the package, especially when you're supporting, so you don't really have a say when it comes to the routing, and then you just have to live with it. And we've done it many, many times. I mean, we've toured the US like 4 times without ever having the time to see something of San Francisco, and it's just the way it is, and you have to deal with it somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Just on the flip side of that, as far as, you know, differences between, you know, touring and, say, the creative process and being in the studio, do you have a preference? Do you prefer to sort of sit and write songs and record, or do you prefer the touring aspect of it more than anything?
I really like both, and what I really like about playing the band in general is that it does have those 2 ends of the spectrum, so to speak. It's both very rewarding, and usually what's cool about it is that by the time you have your album finished, you're really, really sick of the studio, of like staring at a computer screen for the whole day and sitting on your ass and just not moving, and, you know, this meticulous work and attention to detail and concentrating, and you're really like, fuck, I want to get out on the road now. And then that's exactly what happens. You get out on the road and you tour, and then you tour for the whole album cycle, and by the end of it, after like 9 or 10 months, you're really tired of touring and traveling and, you know, just not sleeping and playing live. And then, well, then, you know, you usually get a few weeks of rest, but then you start working on the next record and getting into the studio realm again. So it's a nice balance. It's like, you know, you kind of really exhaust yourself to the max, but then when that is done, you have something completely different.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoy about the process. It's kind of like spending, if you live in Europe, it's kind of like spending the winter in Spain and the summer in Berlin, you know, like getting the best out of both worlds, really. So.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, when you finish a cycle of whether it's a recording or a touring thing, you kind of feel refreshed by the time you start it again, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, exactly. You regain all your energies and need to do it again.
Exactly. Okay, so what's coming up aside from the Australian tour? What have you got planned for the rest of the year?
We're going to do a Scandinavian tour here in Europe after we get back from the Australian tour. That's another territory that we haven't really played with Pellegio yet. So we're basically doing all the territories that we haven't toured with Pellegio yet this year. And then doing summer festivals, and we're going to start working on an EP in June and probably record in June or July. That will probably be released in November. We're going to do a bigger tour here in Europe in November, and for that tour we want to have a new EP out. That's the plan right now, and we've already started working on new material as well. We're not going to record this before the end of the year. So much is clear, but we're like, it's going in a very exciting direction, and I think when we come back from that Australian tour, we're going to, you know, intensely lock ourselves in our rehearsal space and write new material.
Okay, cool, awesome. We're looking forward to that. And so as I said, you know, in the tour in April is going to be, I think it's going to be a fantastic tour, and I really do hope that you guys enjoy yourselves a bit more than last time. And yeah, so we'll see you guys in April. Thanks for taking the time to chat to us today.
All right, thanks to you.